Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vadhitamastuma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. You explain how Chandogya states that Sankalpa is subtler and more effective than Manas. To reduce Ragadvesha, if I take the Sankalpa from the story of three monkeys, see nothing, hear nothing, say nothing, except for what is necessary for Vyavahara, can it help? I guess yes, for a seeker, for a mumukshu who has committed himself or herself to moksha and spiritual growth, there is no need to perform any vyavahara other than what is necessary. So basic sankalpa should be that I will keep away from any kind of transaction which is not necessary. What is necessary is determined by what helps me in my pursuit. Pursuit of knowledge, pursuit of worship, pursuit of karma, whatever way of life I have adopted for myself as a means of achieving the goal I have in mind. For an aspirant or a mumukshu, there is no need to perform any other vyavahara. Although, just by not performing vyavahara, the ragadveshas obtained mind will not go away. The vyavahara triggers the ragadveshas. So ragadveshas will not become aberrant. And that way it can help to avoid being controlled by our impulses, so that I avoid impulsive behavior. But ragadveshas cannot be eliminated by sankalpa. That now I will not display any impulse of attachment and aversion. You can't will that. Because ragadvesha is not the result of will. It is not that someday I will and decided that now I am going to have raga and dvesha. They happen. And therefore you have to remove the cause of raga dvesha. And not performing vyavahara can help the instances when I become overcome by raga dvesha or impulse. Those situations can be avoided, which is okay, it's good. But simply by not doing vyavahara and not allowing ragadveshas to manifest, or not creating situation where ragadveshas can manifest, that will not eliminate ragadvesha. Ragadveshas are effects and effect can go when the cause is removed. Thus we have to understand our ragadveshas, what causes them, and work with the cause so that the effect, ragadvesha, goes away. Attachment and aversion are both aviveka. Seeing some virtues which are not there creates attachment. Seeing some blemishes which are not there creates aversion. And therefore, with pratipaksha bhavana, we have to deal with this impulses of attachment and aversion. So not doing vyavahara is all right in terms of helping me to avoid being controlled by ragadveshas. But not doing vyavahara does not eliminate ragadvesha. It's not vyavahara that causes ragadvesha. It is aviveka that causes ragadvesha. Understand? Aviveka means seeing something which is not there, nor seeing something that is there. That is what causes ragadvesha. Not vyavahara. Although vyavahara becomes the reason for aviveka, but simply vyavahara does not cause ragadvesha. Understand? So I can seclude myself into some kind of a cabin, in the midst of the forest, and can come out as I went in. It is not by avoiding contact that ragadveshas will go. It is by recognizing the cause, namely aviveka, that anything will go when you remove the cause. So anger is an effect, greed is effect, all impulse are effects. Ragadvesha impulse effects of a cause. So effect will go when we eliminate the cause. So therefore, we should understand, as I said, understand our mind. Meaning, understand what creates these impulses. What makes me behave the way I do? What causes the kind of thoughts that arise in my mind? Understand the cause and work with the cause. Knowledge helps build vairagya. With respect to our desires, how do we know we have developed actual vairagya? Or is it mind suppression? Are there any indicators to identify the difference between vairagya and suppression of desire? Vairagya makes you free, happy and cheerful. And mind suppression makes you depressed. It's just the opposite thing. Suppressing the desire will create conflict within yourself, make you sad because you are fighting with your own self, and if you do not do something about it, will make you depressed. Thus, vairagya, which is a healthy state of mind, which is viveka, meaning seeing and understanding things as they are. That's called knowledge. Not knowledge, but viveka creates vairagya. Viveka jnanam creates vairagya. Therefore, if knowledge has helped build Vairagya, if Vairagya has arisen as a result of Viveka, then there is no suppression, then there is understanding. So Vairagya is nothing but the state of understanding when it comes to my relating with the world. A wrong understanding creates attachments and aversions. Right understanding makes me free from attachment and aversion. So, understanding what causes attachment, what causes aversion, that is aviveka. So, by knowledge we mean viveka, understanding the nature of things as they are. I get attached to something because I see only one aspect of the thing. Usually my mind sees one thing, one aspect, and not the thing in its totality. So either the mind keeps on only seeing the virtues of something, benefits of something, not taking into account the cost that is to be paid, and becomes attached. Or it only sees what all blemishes are there, disadvantages are there, not recognize that it's the two sides of a coin. Everything is like a coin. And so, seeing both the sides, then I will be what we call objective. So Vairagya means seeing things as they are, being objective. That's why Vairagya is a means of knowledge. Knowledge means seeing self as I am, seeing the world as it is, seeing Ishvara as he is. And so, it is not mind suppression. And I am sure that one knows that I am suppressing my mind. Because there is tension. Mind wants to do something, I suppress it. So there is a fight, battle going on with myself, within myself. There is no need to do that. There is no need to suppress the mind, nor the need to have the mind do what it wants either way. Not that mind is given free rein to do what it wants, nor the mind is suppressed from doing what it wants. Everywhere Viveka. This evening we saw what is kartavya, akartavya, what is ought to be, which is doable, worth doing, what is not worth doing, what is worthy, what is not worthy. Every moment we should be alert in assessing whatever we come across, whatever we confront. I must assess moment to moment what I am confronting and then what is appropriate to say. I may be wrong, that's a different matter, but as far as I am concerned, I should be awareful in assessing what is proper, what is not proper. And thus everybody should be. At all the moments of when we are conscious, all the moments of consciousness, we should be alert and doing the viveka. So, that was called Chittam, Sankalpa, all different degrees were told. It's a very beautiful analysis of mind. It's general analysis, manah, buddhi, chittam, that's okay, but this is analyzing mind of different levels of how a cascading effect takes place. So far it was Sankalpa and then Manaha, with subtler and subtler, up to Brahma. So, thus understanding our mind as best as we can. Atma is immortal. It never dies. My childlike mind wants to know, then why do we have, or how do we have so much of population? If Atma is immortal, doesn't die, then why do you have so much population? From where so many Atmas are coming? What do you mean by population? What do you mean by population? You mean human population or population? We think that we are only inhabitants of the earth or what? We are an extremely small minority. There will be more mosquitoes than we are and more ants than we are. How many jivas are there? Have you counted them? And then decided that there is an overflow of jiva? You only count human beings with nothing. 7 billion is nothing compared to, the living beings there are in this world, on this earth in fact. So how do you say that there is growth of population? You think that human beings are only one, therefore growth in human being is growth of population? Our Swami said, maybe a few mosquitoes are less now. That's all we can say. Because birth is nothing but changing the embodiment from one embodiment to the other. So maybe a few mosquitoes took the human embodiment. So mosquitoes are fewer and humans are more, something like that. But it is childlike mind which thinks like that. That is true. Some grief is harassing the great sage Narada. Soham Bhagavad Sochami. I'm Narada, I'm grieving. Isn't it strange and contradictory? Swamiji, can we know from the available scriptures what that specific grief was that disturbed Narada so much? What was the desire that made him so unhappy? When a poor creature, I am on this Mother Earth. I haven't faced any grief for the last 20 years. Since I first attended the Vedanta class. Kindly elaborate on Narada Muni's grief. It's a matter of sensitivity. Sometimes we may not be sensitive to what is happening within ourselves and we may be blissfully ignorant of what's going on in our own mind. And know that what is his grief. But it is said, we have talked about grief for the first 2 days anyway here. And explaining Arjuna's grief. And therefore we did not explain Narada's grief separately. But ignorance of the self causes a false perception or false notion of myself that I am a limited being. Ignorance of fact, that limitless I am, ignorance of that fact creates in me this notion or conclusion that I am limited. And it is that sense of limitation in the self, of the self, that's the cause of grief. Why? Because I want to see myself free and limitless. I want to see myself limitless. I find myself limited, therefore I don't like myself. So grief is because of dissatisfaction with my own self. And every human being is born with ignorance. Therefore, with a sense of self-dissatisfaction. And that's what grief. And we congratulate you that for 20 years, and God bless you, that you don't feel grief. But as long as I do not know that I am Brahman, so long it is difficult to avoid feeling a sense of isolation, separation, limitedness. So when I look at you, how do I feel? When you look at the world, that you are you and I am I. That's the basic thing, is it not so? That is where the grief is. Brahmatam paradat ihanyatra atmana Brahma Veda. Upanishad says that when I look upon Brahma, means a Brahmana, as a separate from me, then I become rejected by Brahmana. Meaning, whoever I look upon as separate from myself is equal to rejecting that entity, and I get rejected in turn. This rejection, when you're rejected by somebody, you feel grieved, isn't it? Therefore, the grief is built into our basic false perception of ourselves. And so, there is not that Narada has a special kind of grief, and Arjuna has a different kind of grief, and I have a different kind of grief. Grief is grief. Manasa santapa. The suffering that takes place in the mind. Suffering because things are not what I want them to be. Suffering because my expectation is not fulfilled. That I do not find myself in keeping who I expect myself to be. And therefore I have problems with you also because you don't fulfill my expectation. Or so I feel. Basically, problem with myself. That I fail to fulfill my expectation of myself. And then it overflows. Superimpose. You did not do that, you did not do that, you did this, etc. So apparently grief looks like because people are rejecting us, because people are treating us this way, that way and so forth. That is the gross assessment of the cause of grief. But suppose you reject me, so what? Suppose you hate me, so what? Does it have to make me unhappy? You hate me. Thank you. That's right. You hate me because you have a certain opinion about me. I can say that, keep your opinion with you. Can I not? I don't internalize that grief. I start grieving when I internalize what you tell me. If I keep you know the very famous dialogue that Gautam Buddha had with his disciple, who looked quite disturbed. And so Buddha asked him, what makes you unhappy? Yesterday I went to a given community for bhiksha. And every house I went, they just insulted me. You're a healthy person, this, that, and they kept on abusing me. Very sad. So Gautam Buddha says to him, this is my kamandalu. I'm giving you my kamandalu. Oh, no, I can't take your kamandalu. I'm giving you. No, it's your kamandalu. So who does the kamandalu belong to? Sir, it is you. I was giving you, but I didn't take it. So when he gave you the kamandalu, what? In terms of insult, in terms of abuse, it's your choice whether to take it or not. Is it not so? We should know that we are partners in every kind of grief that arises. We cooperate and allow ourselves to be abused. We empower the world to create grief in me. If I do not, then thank you. I hate you. All right. I appreciate. I sympathize with you. I'm sorry that I'm hateable. I'm sorry. Can you say that? If you can say that, that means you have not empowered the person. So whenever we feel unhappy, we have empowered somebody to make us unhappy. And there is no except. Every ignorant person does that. Because an ignorant person entertains a false notion of oneself that I'm a needy person. Please fulfill my need. So I have an expectation and you don't oblige me. And therefore you and I had expectation of you. You did not oblige my fulfilling, and then I blame you. Isn't it? Isn't that funny? So grief is grief. Whether it says Narada's grief, Arjuna's grief, your grief, my grief. And God bless you that you don't have grief. Which means that you are free from expectation. Which is great. Which means that when does it happen? When I am able to fulfill my own expectation. When would that be? When I see myself as Brahman. When I see myself as Purna. There is no expectation from myself. There is no expectation from you. There cannot be grief. So what is meant by self-knowledge is seeing myself as Purna, which is the nature of the self. Could you kindly tell me, I'll direct the question this way. Could you kindly tell me the dhatu avadhyagishtaha? I think about Mataji putting me on the spot, You ask me a question, I'll ask you another question. In Mantra 3, Adhyagishta, even Swami will tell you, you don't have to ask me. Is it Madhyama Purusha Ekavachanam of Vidilinga or Chandas form? Please clarify. Now scholars asking me, I'm not a scholar, So tell me, so Ekavachanam of Vidilinga, which dhatu? Adhi agishtaha. She's finding out. That's what I do usually. When a question arises, I direct them there. That's a very convenient thing. I usually don't take too much trouble with myself. Okay, the answer will come. If you don't find answer, then we'll approach Swamiji. In adhyane adadihi, okay. Atmanepadi sakarmaka anit, that is ing. But now how does the form come? Okay, we'll do the research and tell you. When you say it by understanding name as Brahman, one acquires freedom to move as far as the range of name extends. Should the range of name be considered to extend or be limited to desha, kala, vastu? Should that stand same for manas, vak, sankalpa, chittam? How are the three ranges different from each other? The degree of subtleness which is brought about. Yes. When it is said that the name pervades everything, the name pervades every rupa, name and form. So nama pervades every rupa, so it pervades the whole gross creation of name and form. Everything has all these levels of subtlety. And therefore the other aspect, the speech and the manaha and the sankalpa, etc., chittam, so they all pervade the subtler aspect until Brahman pervades everything. That shows that everything is made up of all these different layers. What is evident is the grossest level, which is Nama Rupa. And then, because Nama Rupa is there, therefore the cause of Nama Rupa must be there, which is speech. So the cause of speech must be there, which is manaha. The cause of manaha must be there, which is etc. That's how it goes. Thus, each one pervades the whole universe. Each one pervades the whole universe of names and forms. And therefore, all of these have the reach of the whole universe. Is Sankalpa Brahman or is it Brahman Sankalpa? Difficult to imagine Sankalpa as Brahman since I am used to thinking Sankalpa is always done by some conscious entity. When the Parvata, book, etc. are there because of Sankalpa, do you mean Ishvara Sankalpa? Very much right. This should have been added there or mentioned, that when it is said that the mountain wills, it is the consciousness which is intelligence in the mountain that wills. Ultimately, it is consciousness that has become through all these stages. This will all lead to Brahman or consciousness. So consciousness manifests through all the stages as the whole gross universe. And so ultimately consciousness pervades everything, and consciousness manifests as the prana, asha, etc., 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 up to the nama. And that's how it pervades the grosser and grosser levels. It becomes evident to us. So starting from what is evident to us, we are taken to the subtler levels of reality or understanding. So what is evident is to the eyes or the senses, but then evident to the manaha, evident to the sankalpa, etc., and evident to, that's the consciousness, that's the self. And so it is sankalpa of Brahman, but sankalpa is Brahman in a gaun or a secondary sense. Because Brahman means that which is all pervasive. In that sense, Nama even was said to be Brahman because Nama pervades where the Rupa is. And when Nama is there, the Vak speech must be there. Without speech, Nama cannot be. When speech is there, then which impairs the speech, that Manas must be there. And therefore, everything is Brahman. Not Brahman Sankalpa, but everything is Brahman. You can ultimately say it is Brahman Sankalpa that has caused, but Brahman, which is present everywhere alone, does the Sankalpa. So when we find earth possessing earthness and not giving up its nature, consistently functioning or manifesting itself as earth or fire or water or space, That shows that there is some will involved in there, otherwise that which does not allow it to be different from what it is supposed to be. Otherwise, without will, things will keep changing. When the thing remains changeless, consistent, there is something that keeps it consistent, because to change is a nature, but a thing is not allowed to change, that means something keeps it from changing. Like, for example, when you sit in a posture, move motionless. That shows that effort must be there, because it is nature of body to move. So to make an effort to keep the body free from motion, is it not? That means some sankalpa, will is required. So when something is steady, it shows that will must be there, because to change is a nature. And if allowed, then it will, if body is allowed, it will keep moving. Mind is allowed, it will keep on thinking. Similarly, if anything allowed, then it will change. The fact that something does not change, that means that there is some will which prevents it from the tendency to change. You follow what I am saying? Karmani akarmaya pashet, akarmana cha karmaya. So when you see the karma, recognize that the foundation, substratum, is a karma. Akarma is substratum, and karma is superimposition. But then, karma means change. Without change, karma cannot be. For an akarmani is karmaya. When akarma is there, inaction is there. See action in that. That's what Lord Krishna says. See actionless in action, because actionless is the very substratum of the action. See action in inaction. When you find inaction, see action in there. Can you see that? For example, imagine a slope and a car. It is the nature of the car to roll down the slope, is it not so? Suppose it is a car stands still in the middle of the slope. When would that be? When would it be? Huh? Brake is applied. So in motionless car there is action. What is action? Applying brake and not allowing the motion, which is nature of the car, to roll down. Meaning that when the nature is not allowed to manifest itself, there is some restrainment there. Therefore, when somebody is not doing anything, realize that some doing is happening by way of will, which does not allow the body to move, does not allow the mind to move. That means the will is there, which prevents those things whose nature it is to move and doesn't allow them to move or change, that requires will. Akarmani cha karmaya. Thus in inaction, see the action. So that is how the sankalpa is in mountains, etc. Because otherwise a thing will change. To change is nature of Prakriti. And mountain doesn't change, Prithvi doesn't change, fire doesn't change, it consistently retains or maintains or displays its nature. That means some restraint is involved, which does not allow fire to be different from what it is supposed to be. The sun rises at a appointed time in the morning. You think given freedom, sun would do that? It also would want to wake up late one day, is it not? Says they are all functioning like the obedient servants. All these mighty forces of wind and fire and sun and moon. Like obedient servants. Who will be obedient? Only when there is a thunderbolt, somebody standing there with Vajra, thunderbolt. Vajramudyatam, says Kathopanishad. That is why they are all like obedient servants. The whole universe functions as an obedient servant because there is some force there that keeps them all disciplined, in check. That's called the law, the order. Nothing has the freedom to violate the order. Nature it is always to violate. Given freedom, psh. So if the mountain remains what it is, that must be something there which prevents it from being different from what it is supposed to be. Earth is what it is because there is some restrainment which prevents the earth from being different from what it is supposed to be. Earth is what it is supposed to be. Fire is what it is supposed to be. That means that some will must be there. Some restraint must be there. Will must be there. That's how we saw Sankalpa manifesting. Now, so Adhyagishtaha Madhyama Purusha Ekvachan Kartari Prayoga I Lung Lakar Ing Adhyayane Nityam Adhipurva Adadehi. So Adhi plus I Madhyama Purusha Lung Lakar becomes Adhyagishtaha Madhyama Purusha Ekvachan. Where was the question? You already said that. It's not Chandas or whatever. Madhyam Purush Ekvachana Vidilinga.
Lung Lakar.
This is Lung Lakar.
Past tense.
So it is past tense. Okay. So that is our ready reckoner. From where I get my answers, I am somewhat lazy, that is why. Is Shanti Mantra Apyayantu chanted with Swara, Swarita Anudatta, but we don't have that, I'm sure. But for these mantras, I do not know of any swaras that are available. Apyan, therefore we chant them plain. Apyayantu, does it? I don't have any. There are no swaras that. So we chant Apyayantu Mamang. So it looks like there are swaras. Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre. So it looks like swaras. That's the way of chanting. But though there are swaras that we don't know. Some of these swaras are not available. Like Kyano Upanishad. I don't know if there are swaras. Chandogya Upanishad. And so they're all Vedic passages and supposed to have swaras at some point in time, but we don't have them available, or we do not know. Okay, so that takes care of the questions, right? Okay. So how about asking someone else to sing this evening? Our Srinidhi, would you sing something, some bhajan, kirtan?